Hi, and welcome to the Rocket Radio Show. I'm your host, Rocket. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the day finds you. Welcome and salutations. Welcome to my show. Well, another day, another dollar. Another day passes on the continual decline of our country, and we stand by the sidelines, helpless. There's nothing we can do. The powers that be, whether that be the government or the devil or a jinn, maybe it's the 13th Mahdi, maybe it's the Antichrist, is now in charge. After all, the fireball at the end, as foretold by the Jewish zombie, we all die in a big fireball, so it doesn't really matter. Today I want to take a little bit of a departure and just talk about some stuff that doesn't really matter. So now would be your clue to click off and go somewhere else to find something else that's already been redone. Or maybe you could go watch Jenna Marbles show you how to make your boobs look bigger. Because nothing really matters. It's all entertainment. Everybody's lying to you. You get that, right? If they're popular, they're lying to you. But today's show I want to talk about is every boy needs a cab over camper. I've had more good experiences in a cab over camper than you could imagine. Now, when I grew up, our yard was full of a lot of stuff, kind of like Sanford and Son. But one thing we did have was an old cab over camper in the backyard. It was up on blocks. It was back behind wood piles and by a well house, so you couldn't really see it back there, and it made a really great fort and just a center of location for doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, we used to hang out there when we were kids. We'd bring a popcorn machine out there and eat popcorn. And then later, when we were teenagers, we would go out there to smoke pot or score with chicks. Had plenty of score action in the old cab over camper in the backyard. But I got two separate stories I want to tell about the cab over camper that I think are funny. Maybe you'll like it too. I had a friend, not necessarily a friend, but it was a bully in school, a big guy. He had the same name as The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and his girlfriend, Angie Johnson. It was so weird they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but they were side by side in their photos like they were married at school. Anyway, guy was a big bully. He was the guy that used to pull girls' tube tops down. And for you millennials, boy, did you ever miss out on the tube top fashion craze. Man, was that awesome. But anyway, the guy was a bully. I mean, a mean bully, too, a lot of times. He was a smart ass, and he was funny, but he was just super cruel to people and kind of violent and would hurt people. Well, anyway, what I did is I took the court jester angle. I would avoid bullies when I was growing up by being funny or out intellectualizing them or asking them questions or flattering them, just kind of carefully handling them like a cobra or poisonous snake. But anyway, I started to actually develop a friendship with this guy, and he did sort of lord over my presence wherever I was. People knew I was friends with him. But anyway, late into my teens, I had a chance to spend the night at his house. He's like, "Hey, come over, we're going to do so-and-so." And I was like, okay. Earlier in the day, we had been playing lawn darts. Remember lawn darts? Can you imagine lawn darts being sold nowadays? And what we did as a variation is we would throw the darts at each other and catch them with a Frisbee in your hand. You hold the Frisbee, throw the dart, let it stick through the Frisbee, pick it off, throw it back at your friend. So, crazy suicidal games. Anyway, I wound up going over to his house and spending the night. That was the idea. And I get over there, and his older brother was even meaner. He wasn't likable at all. And to make a long story short, I was there for a couple of hours, and the guy kept hurting me, kept doing stuff to me. I didn't know how to deal with it. He was picking on me, and then finally he slammed me on the wrist with a caulking gun, and that was it. It made me cry. It hurt, and that was it. I was going home, so I left. Well, when I started heading home, it was probably 10 or 11 at night. It was cold and stuff, and I walked home. But when I got home, I realized that if I went inside and told my parents that Dwayne's brother beat on me and that's why I came home, I probably wouldn't be allowed to play with Dwayne anymore. Probably wouldn't be allowed to go over to his house anymore. I didn't think that would be a good idea. And besides, it was already late. I'm thinking it was like maybe midnight. And so I decided, I just said, screw it. I went around through the side and got in and went into the cab over camper and went in there and laid down and sleep. And I figured in the morning I'd get up bright and early and come home, and I would say that everything was okay, so that I wouldn't be cut off from my friend, you know. So anyway, I'm laying in there sleeping. I'm out cold. All of a sudden, and I don't have any idea what time it is, all of a sudden the door comes open of the camper, and it's my brother. He's like, oh my God. I'm like, what? And he goes, you're in here. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, oh my God, you're in such big trouble. And I said, what? He goes, dude, the police are looking for you. You need to come inside right now. And I'm like, what? Anyway, long story short, Dwayne's parents, when they realized that I left because the older son was picking on me, they got a hold of my mom just to apologize and to make sure I made it home safe. Well, when they went in my room, I wasn't there. They looked all over for me. They couldn't find me. Now it's 1 o'clock in the morning. And so they start freaking out. Well, after another hour of driving around looking for me, meanwhile I'm sleeping, right, in the backyard in the cab over camper, they gave up, called the police. So like 6 squad cars came to my parents' house. And to get home from Dwayne's house, I had to go through a school area, and there's a big creek there, and I would walk down the edge of the creek to go through the hole in the fence to go to my house, you know, the street where my house is. And so it was concluded that I might be down in the creek. And so my father and the cops were down in the creek with flashlights looking for me while I was sleeping. So I came in the kitchen, and my mom's like, oh, you know. Everybody was so relieved that I wasn't hurt, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't want to wake everybody up. I just slept in the camper. That's what I said, you know. No harm, no foul, call the cops off. That was just one story that was pretty interesting. I had the cops looking for me. I guess my parents cared about me. I don't know. Now, the next story about that cab over camper, this is not going to sound believable, but it really is true. Now, I had a friend. His name was Joe. I think he's dead now. He finally died, but back in the day I knew him. Me and him were young teenage stud muffins. We were always scoping on chicks together. That was mostly our game plan. And once again, to make a long story short, there was a big public swimming pool. We used to like to go to there to hang out. There were a lot of chicks there, you know. And finally, one time we went, and here was this, you know, in my mind, she was just beautiful. Gosh, this girl was just so nice looking. Wow. And both me and Joe were all over her. Boy, blah, 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 blah. Hi, what's your name? What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. You know, trying to get down her pants, basically. But, you know, get to know her. And this goes on all afternoon, right? We're, like, playing with her in the pool and sitting with her on her towel. And both me and Joe are tag teaming this chick. You know, we both were just, like, all over her. She's cute and stuff. Pretty soon it starts to get in the afternoon, you know, you're getting wrinkled, you've been in the sun all day, it's time to pack it in, you know. What do you guys want to do? Well, what I had that Joe didn't have is I had the cab over camper. You know, it's like that old saying, men out there, you know the easiest way to deal with chicks that you meet in public that you're trying to hook up with? It's so simple. Just talk to them for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, say, hey, would you like to come to my place and have some wine? If they say no, move on. That's it. You know, the awkward first kiss. Should you do it? Should you not? Do they like you? You don't know. It's simple. Let's go to my house and have some wine. Right there, if they say, oh, okay, that sounds like fun, you're in the bag. Well, so anyway, long story short, I wound up going home with this girl and taking her into the cab over camper. And we're kicking it in there. And yes, we got to business. But nonetheless, once again, very similar. Now, I'm not sure if this story happened before or after. I'll have to think about that. Not sure. Anyway, maybe it was after, because here's what happened. So anyway, I'm in the cab over camper with this gal, and she had a diastomy. She had a big gap between her teeth, kind of like that hot model that has that diastomy. But otherwise, she was smoking hot, and so we were in the camper together. I think we were just lounging, kind of that post-glow, and all of a sudden, once again, the door comes flying open, and it's my brother. And he's like, Rocket! I'm like, oh my God! He goes, dude, the police are looking for you. And I'm like, what? He goes, you need to come inside. And then he looks over, whoa, who's that? And I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so. We just met today. He's like, and I'm like, bro, please don't say anything. Don't blow it. And so I go to the chick. I go, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. So I'm like, what's going on? And so I go inside, and he's like, it's Joe. And I'm like, what? He goes, the police are on the phone, and they want to talk to you. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, oh, Christ. And I come inside, and there's my parents there, like, where are you at? And I was like, I was at the swimming pool. And they're like, well, something's going on with your friend Joe. There's a police sergeant on the phone. And I'm like, okay. And, hello? And I hear, like, radio patch in, is this Rocket? Yes. Are you friends with a guy named Joe? And I'm like, yes, I am. You need to come down to the overpass, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what? And so my father and myself and my brother, we drive the truck over to this overpass. It's an overpass over the freeway on the way home to my house from where we were at the swim pool. And my friend Joe is sitting out on one of the lights that's hanging out over the roadway with his feet dangling. He's wearing his swimming trunks that were like light brown with no shoes, no shirt, right? And they're like, there's a guy up on the bridge, he's nude, and he's deaf because we've been talking to him and he doesn't appear to be able to hear us, which in fact he was just ignoring them. And then they had the freeway blocked off. They had a fire truck and cop cars and a giant crowd. He's suicidal. And I was thinking, what the hell is he doing? This is my friend, my buddy, right? And I see him from the crowd, and I whistle, Joe, you know. And then I'm thinking, wow, and they're going, well, he's asking for you. For me, right? He wants to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. But we're not going to let you talk to him yet. And my dad was like, well, if he's asking for him, why don't you let him talk to him? And he's like, well, a lot of times suicidal people ask for a certain person to come to the scene, and as soon as they know they're there, they kill themselves. So we're going to keep him holding off just for a minute. And I'm thinking, Dad, he's not suicidal. I mean, my dad's like, I wish I could get a rope. I would just lariat him and we'd pull him off there. Well, pretty soon they brought up a ladder truck, a fire department ladder truck, and it had a cop and a fireman in the basket. And it was like coming up to his feet. You know, he's dangling. He's like, I don't know, 50 feet off the ground. His leg. Here comes the ladder truck, and it's tall enough. The truck itself is tall enough almost to reach up there. And so it's bent like a big elbow, and the basket is going up to where he's at. And the cops are there, and you can see by their body language they're like negotiating. You know, suicidal jumper negotiating. Like, come on, dude, life is worth living, right? Well, all of a sudden, Joe realizes I can see him see me in the crowd. He sees me because we're just teenage friends, you know. I wave like, hey, dude, he sees me. As soon as he sees me, he jumps. And what does he do? He jumps over the basket where the cop and the fireman are and lands on the hinge mechanism of the truck, of the fire truck. And the whole crowd went, like, just like in the movies, oh, you know, everybody made a sound when he jumped, like, holy shit, and he landed right on top and then kind of climbed up to the highest point. Well, now the cops, they all get around the truck, and the firemen are there, and he's way up in the air on top of the truck, you know, maybe 20 feet in the air on the truck, and they can't reach him. And then, okay, let his friend come in. That was me, right? So the cops come up, little rocket, right? I'm a little rocket booster back then. Hey, a rocket, okay, you're clear, come on with us. And so they bring me out to the scene, you know. There's all these people. The freeway stopped, right? They stopped the freeway for all this shit, so traffic is backing up as far as you can see. And so they bring me up to the fire truck. And I see my friend up there, and the cops are like, listen, we don't want to hurt him. Just tell him he needs to calm down. It's over now. He's not in trouble. We're going to help him. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, you can go ahead and climb up there. And I'm like, okay. And so I climbed up on top of the fire truck, and pretty soon I get up there and I sit down on the fire truck with my friend. He's there too. There's thousands of people looking at us. There's a spotlight on us. There's an helicopter flying overhead. There's all these cars backed up and mayhem below us, and fire trucks and law enforcement and my parents and Jesus Christ, the kids from the neighborhood. And here we are, we're sitting up on this thing, all this background noise, and it's just me and him. And I'm like, dude. He gets a big smile. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, man, you're in big trouble. I go, were you trying to kill yourself? And he's like, no. I just climbed out there to sit on there. I just thought it would be weird to do. And then when the cop pulled up, I freaked out. I didn't know what to do. And the next thing I know, they had all the fire trucks here. And I'm like, bro, you better come down now. They're saying you're not in trouble. They won't hurt you. You should just come down now. And so we sat there for a little while, like, basking in all this attention. And so finally we start carefully climbing down, and the policemen are there. Everybody's there just carefully guiding, like, here, let me help you, and, you know, handing your hand. I like, jumped down to the ground. I had my shoes and shit on. Joe's just wearing a swim trunk. That's it, right? And he's coming down there, like, raising your hands, like, here, gentle.